Now, the First Coast's most accurate forecast from the First Coast News Weather Team, certified by Weather Rate, sponsored by AC Designs.
The last of the rain is finally making its kind of last push or last gasp here at bringing the First Coast some showers this afternoon. Welcome in. I am meteorologist Ross Mummah. Chief Meteorologist Tim Deegan, he's working on another little project here this afternoon. So you kind of just have to rock and roll with me for today. But over about the past, let's say, at least 3, if not almost 4 days, some folks have picked up quite a good bit of rain, several inches of rain, actually, in fact. Others, perhaps not so much, but the main kind of wave of energy in front from this system is now beginning to move offshore. So we really just kind of have these kind of lingering bands of showers and waves of energy that are pretty narrow and thin, kind of making their way across the First Coast right now. And this is a pretty good way to depict what is kind of happening. There's a huge upper level system that has now become vertically stacked. So the upper level low and the surface low are pretty much aligned vertically on top of one another right near the Mississippi and Alabama border. That shows it is a very mature low pressure system, and it's pulling in a lot of dry air from aloft down to the surface. So you can see now coming out of the southwest, out of the Gulf, a lot of dry air. So that's not really coming from the surface. It's actually, 10, 20, 30,000 feet aloft, that dry air being pulled in on the backside of this. So that's going to quickly begin to wring things out, especially in the mid to upper levels of the atmosphere. So we're beginning to lose our overall moisture content as this whole system gradually makes its way to the northeast here now. But nonetheless, there still is enough low-level moisture and some instability out there as these small, just kind of bands of showers work their way from west to east. That some folks are still seeing at least a little bit of some rain and some rumbles of thunder out there. Now, most of this is west of Highway 301, so we're talking Union County up into Baker County as well. You can see from McClenny southward down into Union. A little bit of an isolated thunderstorm there. And then the northern Suwannee, kind of northern part of Columbia County or just to the northwest of there, headed up toward the Okefenokee. Also seeing just a few isolated showers. These are pretty quick moving downpours, not to be too worried about most of those. But this is a live look out of, I believe it's McClenny, or just to the northeast of McClenny by about 2 to 3 miles. So giving you a great live look at what some of those downpours and isolated thunderstorms are looking like for areas west of the metro here right now. The storms have slowly slid off to the east, so this was aligned perfectly a couple minutes ago, but we're just kind of trying to show you relatively shallow storms. The majority of the updrafts in these are only about 15,000 feet, which is not all that strong. The overall cloud tops are about 20,000 feet, so a fairly shallow base. A storm core here also going to show you that with regards to how strong or intense that updraft is. You typically need to get those real dark greens into the yellow and oranges to get some strong downburst winds with these, some very, very heavy downpours as well. Thankfully, especially after the weekend we've had of rain and storms and even some severe weather, that is not the case with any of these storms out there in Baker County or even now into southern Charlton, far southwestern Nassau County. Some just kind of quick moving isolated showers and storms there. So not a whole lot to be worried about, but this is going to be the last of the rain over about the next, I'd say 4 to 5 hours for nearly all of us here across the First Coast. We might have a few isolated things tomorrow, and we'll touch on that here in a second. But if you're not seeing rain, it's still pretty muggy, pretty humid out there, but temperatures have stayed quite low thanks to some of the rain we saw earlier this morning and the majority of that cloud cover. I'm peeking out the window. You can see the sun kind of breaking through the clouds a little bit, but overall, it's kept those temperatures in check. So many of us with highs in the upper 70s and lower 80s here this afternoon. But here, models are showing kind of that wave. These little small showers or bands of showers making their way eastward. So if you live in and around Jacksonville or just the metro area as a whole, I would say between about 5:30 and 7:30 tonight, we could see at least a few more showers make their way through. So if you have outdoor evening plans, don't cancel them, but don't be surprised if you get at least a quick shower to roll on in. I don't expect there to be much of a lightning risk with any of these. You saw there in Baker County at the live radar, there was just one isolated storm, so it's possible, but we are not expecting that to be a big risk here as we head throughout the rest of your Monday night. And then headed into tomorrow. For the most part, we really begin to dry out. That drier air continues to be brought on in. Tim and I do think by the afternoon tomorrow, you kind of have that weak land breeze out of the west-southwest. That Atlantic East Coast sea breeze kind of rolls on in middle of the afternoon. Might see a few isolated showers, perhaps a rumble of thunder here or there, but really rain chances tomorrow are only going to be about 25 to 30% coverage up and down that I-95 corridor. So not really expecting much rain tomorrow besides just a few quick downpours there. I would say between about 2 and 5 p.m. tomorrow afternoon and evening. Then after that, the rest of our week looking pretty dry. And you see that there on our rain chances over the next 7 days. Wednesday, perhaps an isolated chance at best. And then Thursday, Friday, very, very dry. And likely you're going to have to wait until at least the weekend to maybe see our next best chance of some rain here across the First Coast. And as I said, that whole kind of system moves off to the northeast. You can see those real, darker colors, not the greens, obviously, that's the high moisture content, but the yellows and especially those oranges, reds, kind of maroon or burgundy colors. When they work in, that's some very, very dry air aloft in the mid-levels of the atmosphere, anywhere from about 700 to 300 millibars. So really that big middle section where you often have to look at for these big, large-scale systems. Really not a whole lot of moisture in place until you can see Saturday rolls around, potentially into Sunday. There's going to be a very weak boundary and system off to our northwest that might drop in a few showers to southeast Georgia there for this weekend. But we'll get to the weekend forecast in a bit. Again, it's just Monday. So at least overnight tonight, again, we're still going to watch those isolated showers through the rest of this evening. Overnight temperature is going to cool off into the mid to upper 60s for many of us, so a little bit of a nicer, cooler evening. And then tomorrow, mid 80s for many of us. It's going to be a little bit warmer than we've seen here, or compared to at least today. And we talked about those, rain chances, especially by the middle to latter portions of tomorrow afternoon. Otherwise, not expecting, a whole lot to, impact your Tuesday tomorrow, especially if you have outdoor plans tomorrow afternoon and evening. Then as we head to the middle of the week, if you got that thermostat, at least the outdoor thermostat, it's getting cranked up. You're going to have to crank your AC up here, especially by the end of the week and into this coming weekend, because that heat really starts to build in starting on Wednesday. High is going to be in the upper 80s there, mostly sunny skies. We're going to have this huge ridge of high pressure begin to build in out of the southwestern Gulf. So big ridge of not only high pressure, but you can almost kind of see where the polar jet stream is, well off to the north, kind of up toward Canada, and then that subtropical jet kind of coming right over the First Coast and then dipping right back down towards Miami. So that's kind of where those streamlines are, those wind directional vectors. Otherwise, though, you see those dark oranges and even the reddish colors begin to creep in by Thursday, Friday, Saturday. That's really just kind of showing you the type of air mass that is going to be moving into place. So if you are a fan of the hot and humid weather, you're in luck. We got plenty of it here over the coming days. For those of you that aren't, try and stay inside, drink lots of water, crank the AC like I said. I know I got family coming down from Pennsylvania this weekend, or this coming weekend, I should say, and they are certainly not prepared for the temperatures that they're about to see and the real field temperatures they're about to see, especially, for how cool it is this time of year up in the Northeast and up in Pennsylvania specifically. So this is just a little precursor of what is to come. 92 on Thursday, even more so as you head into Friday, Saturday, Sunday even. 96 Friday, 97 Saturday. Record highs those days are 96 degrees. So we could be very, very close to breaking some records. When you factor in the humidity, dew points, now they're not going to be nearly as high as they were this weekend with all the rain we saw, but dew points could still be in the upper 60s for the most part. I would say anywhere from between about 66 to 70 degree dew point. So what that means is, although, let's say, on Friday, The air temperature could be 96 degrees. It could feel at least 5 to 6 degrees warmer than that. Feeling like the low triple digits starting on Friday and continuing into the weekend. But Tim and I definitely believe that Saturday could be our best chance to break a daily record high here. I mean, this is some intense heat for, the beginning of May. Current forecasted high is 97. The current record is set at 96 degrees, set back in 1995. So Saturday looks to be the best chance to at least break a record, but certainly wouldn't be surprised if we at least tie some starting on Friday and continuing through this upcoming weekend. So isolated rain chances here this evening, continuing tomorrow, and then really we start to crank it up quite a bit when it comes to the heat. And it stays pretty relentless. You notice Sunday, 96, Monday, 95. Again, real feel, and that heat index still going to be close to about 100 degrees there through the end of the weekend and into early next week. So this is going to be about anywhere from 10 to 12 degrees above average air temperature for this time of the year. So this certainly could be described or defined as a heat wave, and a major one at that here across the First Coast, and specifically Jacksonville as we head into the weekend and even into early next week. But I do want to pop up the rain chances one more time. You can see a lot of those showers and storms kind of just firing up over the Gulf Stream well off to our east across the Atlantic there. So that is really where the main wave of energy or source from this system has now shifted. So we're really just going to see these isolated bands off to our west here through the rest of tonight. I believe I have one more thing to zoom on in. So Union County, Baker County, Charlton County looking to be the kind of hotbed for some showers, at least for the time being. But do note, down towards Alachua County in the Gainesville area, that is what will slowly make its way up into Clay County, and then eventually Duval and Nassau over about the next hour, 2 hours. I would say probably by about 8, 9 o'clock, our rain chances are pretty much diminished. But there's going to be a lot of folks out on the roadways here very, very soon for their evening commute. So certainly won't be the best case scenario for anyone who's going to be on the west sides of town here over the next, let's say, hour or so, because we will have at least some rain. And some of the downpours, could be heavy at times. Now, they are fairly quick moving, so that's a good thing. Even when I drove into work this afternoon, you would drive through a section of rain for maybe about a mile. It would be heavy, but you would quickly move out of it. And that's because these showers and storms are moving off to the northeast at a pretty quick clip. So not too concerned overall with regards to, training storms that were one location and a lot of ponding on the roadways. That certainly doesn't look to be the case here, at least this evening. But again, we'll watch this tonight. We'll have a few more tomorrow afternoon, maybe 1 or 2 on Wednesday. And then after that, rest of the week, looking very hot, very humid out there. Really not a whole lot of relief in sight, at least over the next 7 days. So, one other thing to note, especially now that the rain is starting to subside, a lot of folks are going to be headed out to the beaches and things like that. There is a high rip current risk, or a rip current statement in effect, up and down the First Coast. So all the way from, St. Augustine up through Ponte Vedra, through Jacksonville Beach, and up towards the Brunswick area. There will be, some high rip currents, at least for today. Now, that will likely improve at least a little bit as we head into the weekend, but just keep that in mind as well. Also, a very high UV index for the weekend. So the heat's really going to be the big talking point here over the next several days. So until then, enjoy the rainy and cooler weather today before we have a scorcher on the way here by the weekend. As always, I appreciate you guys tuning in. Enjoy the rest of your Monday night. Take care and have a good one.